Denver Broncos 7-7, 3-3 on the road at Las Vegas Raiders, 7-7, 3-4 at home, Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, Nevada. I want the Broncos, but I stopped myself from betting it and thought, why don't I bring it up here? And Turnsey says we have razor sharp picks and Turnsey in the Pub Sports DFS final. I love that. I love that you guys are going heads up for the final and the. I love it. I love it. I love it. We got to talk a lot about it over the next week, Turnsey. All right, let's talk Broncos, Raiders, and Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, Nevada. I, again, repeating myself here, want the Broncos. But do I have the confidence to back Drew Lock? This total opened up at 42.5. It's now at 42. The Raiders opened up -1 at -105, bet 365. They're just -1 at -110. Another thing, though, if I had to bet the Broncos at +100, I'd be taking the worst line. There was much better lines at other books, and that kind of gave me pause. Broncos coming off a tough 15-10 home loss to the Bengals that saw starting quarterback Teddy Bridgewater sent to the hospital with a head injury. He's in concussion protocol. Nobody expects him under center this week. He was 12 of 22 before leaving, while his replacement Drew Lock was 6 of 12 for 88 yards and a touchdown and one costly red zone fumble. Albert Okwuegbunam had 3 catches for 58 yards. Noah Fant, 5 catches for 57 yards. Tim Patrick had 3 catches for 42 yards in the TD. Javonte Williams, another strong game, 15 carries for 72 yards. Should have had the ball in his hands when Drew Lock fumbled it. Melvin Gordon had 15 carries for 53 yards. And Slatsy says Teddy Bridgewater was terrible last week. What's worse than terrible? Drew Lock. And he says Broncos 0-5 against the spread last 5 versus the Raiders. Harold Williams is on the Raiders. Mr. Gogster knows this Broncos team inside and out. Says over. Justin Simmons had 2 sacks. The Broncos were without starters inside linebacker Kenny Young due to a concussion and defensive end Draymond Jones due to a foot injury. They're listed as questionable this week. And Caden Stearns, safety, who doesn't play in most packages, was inactive and is listed as questionable this week. Raiders are on a short week after defeating a COVID-ravaged Browns team on Monday, 16-14, thanks to a 48-yard field goal by Daniel Carlson as time expired. Derek Carr was 25 of 38 for 236 yards, a touchdown and a pick. Zay Jones caught 6 passes for 67 yards and 2 big catches late. Foster Moreau caught 7 passes for 65 yards. Despite the makeshift Browns offensive line, the Raiders had no sacks and 4 quarterback hits. Linebacker Will Compton was a late scratch. He left the team with his family after his mother's unexpected death. He's listed as questionable this week. Safety Jonathan Abrams suffered a shoulder separation midway through the 4th quarter, didn't return. Cornerback Nate, and no update at this point, and he had a good game. Cornerback Nate Hobbs was placed on the reserve COVID-19 list Monday. Trayvon Mullen, another quarterback, was placed on injured reserve Monday with a toe injury. He's done for the year. Tight end Darren Waller and linebacker Denzel Perryman were inactive last week and are listed as questionable this week. I want the Broncos here, but I thought, let's listen to Bebsie and hear what the chat has to say. So take it away, Bebsie. Broncos, Raiders.
I can't back Drew Lock either. So I think you're smart to stay off of that. I wouldn't do it. I think the Raiders are the more unpredictable team here. And if Teddy's in, I bet the Broncos 100% in this. I just don't trust Drew Lock at all. Obviously, the Broncos didn't. They went out and got Teddy Bridgewater, and he is the starter. But it's also a tough spot. Like, when you see your quarterback go down in that way, or any player for that matter, it's hard to get up in that game. I wonder how much it carries over to the next game. Probably not that much. These guys see injuries all the time. But anytime it's kind of like the Donald Parham injury where it didn't look as bad as it ended up being. And those ones, like if somebody gets nailed and it looks like they should be knocked out, those don't faze me as much as the ones where they don't look that bad. Like the Parham one was terrifying because you're like, what happened? And he hit his head off the turf, but it didn't look as bad as the result. And I have that same apprehension here with the Teddy Bridgewater thing. I agree with Curtis Berry. I don't think he's playing, and I would be apprehensive for that reason. Also, I'm semi-apprehensive against betting the Las Vegas Raiders at home because the NFL wants them to win games at home. it's in the best interest of the league for them to win games, and for that reason, I would steer clear of the Broncos, and I personally am off this game entirely.
Let's take the quarterbacks, Derek Carr and Drew Lock, out of it. The Broncos are quite a bit better than the Raiders. Do you agree?
Yeah, I would say you'd give them a slight advantage at most spots. I think the Jonathan Abram injury too is one that can't be overlooked. That guy's a super important piece of this Raiders defense. He's a hard hitting trendsetter for that team. Thank you. But yeah, I would say top to bottom, the Broncos are a better football team, but I don't think they're so much better that Drew Lock can overcome what Carr can do. Carr doesn't quite get the same disrespect that Kirk Cousins does, and I do think Kirk Cousins is a better quarterback than Carr, but I also think Carr gets very little respect considering he's good. He's not great, but he's a good quarterback, and I think we need to stop shitting on Derek Carr.
Yeah, I've been very impressed with how he's handled all the issues that they've gone through. Very, very impressed with his character. I think that the Broncos are the play here, and I know this is an unpopular opinion right now. Let's see where the cash lies. I don't know if I mentioned it here. Just 706 tickets in, 54% of the tickets, 89% of the cash on the Broncos. Very small sample size. And 89% of tickets on the under. I think that Drew Lock is obviously he's a cocky kid and he's a different breed of backup, but I think that it's better with him knowing he's going to be the starter all week rather than some players who you'd prefer not know and kind of just get thrown into the fire. I want him to know all week that he's the starter, take all the first team reps. I know he's a cocky kid, have that swagger about him. And look, I don't know. I think the Broncos are the play here. I think this is a buy low opportunity after what happened against Cincinnati. And I want to back them here. And I'm not sure if I'm going to move on it tonight because I think I can get a better number. And I want to see where the money goes. So I've got question marks beside it, but I expect to be on the Broncos come Sunday. Anything for you, or do we move on?
I'm off this game. I do think it'll be an entertaining divisional matchup. So I'm going to check in on this game a bunch, but I'm off it.
All right, we got Robert Cherry in the house. Robert, hate hearing that you're not feeling well. I know that you have gotten over COVID about 6 months ago, so I just pray that it's not that. But thinking about you and hope that you can start feeling better before Christmas. And stay in touch with me, man. Hope let's get you better. Get you better, my man. Thank you for joining us.